Brilliant. Good evening, everyone. We'll get the meeting started. So a very warm welcome to the first meeting of the Core Business Scrutiny Committee, in particular to returning members from last year back to the committee and to new members as well this year. And it's a pleasure to be the chair of this committee for the foreseeable future, alongside Councillor Azad as my vice chair, and we're supported by Steve Griffiths and other officers that will introduce themselves shortly. A few housekeeping things that I've got to run through. There's no fire alarm test today, so if you do hear the alarm, promptly follow me through that back door and listen to everything that staff say in terms of treating it as a genuine emergency. The meeting's going to be recorded as well for public access on YouTube, and when members want to speak, can you not press your buttons as you would in full council, but put your hand up, and then when I call you, then press your button, because otherwise you'll end up making the camera go a little bit crazy. As this is our first meeting, I think it'd be helpful just for officers to introduce themselves. I know returning members and certainly myself will know some of the officers around the room, but for new members, I think it'd be good just for everyone to introduce themselves. So if you want to start.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Tom Senior. I'm the Associate Director of Law and Governance.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Griffiths, Democratic Services Manager for Dudley Council.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Simmons, Programme Manager for the One Dudley, One ERP system programme.
Evening all, Aftab Razak, Director for Legal Compliance and Assurance.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amajit Sahod, the Associate Director for Business Modernisation.
That's everyone. Yeah, thank you. Just to note that we've got Councillor Clark here as well as Cabinet Member for Finance, so thank you for coming along this evening. Right, I'll move on to the formal agenda. So apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillors Pete Lee and Wayne Lewis. Are there any further apologies for absence from anyone?
Yes, Chair. I can't be there in person. It's Councillor Sandal. I can't be there in person, but I am here on online.
Brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Sandal. I think that obviously as Chair agreed that want you to contribute to any debates that we have tonight. Obviously, if there is a vote, I know being online sort of doesn't allow you to do that, but I'm really conscious that you get the chance to contribute to any debate as well. So, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
In terms of appointment to substitute members, I think we've got Councillor Creed for Councillor Lee and Councillor Hussey for Councillor Lewis. So, yeah, big welcome to you too as well. Agenda item number 3, declarations of interest. Does any member have any interest to declare under the Members' Code of Conduct? Nope. Okay. And public forum. I think we're not inundated with members of the public, so I'm presuming there's no one here from the public that wants to speak unless they're hiding somewhere. So we'll move on to the substantive items for consideration. The first item is agenda item number 6, and that's the Core Business Scrutiny Committee Working Plan for 26-27. The report that you've had... oh, sorry.
Have we done agenda item 4, Chair? Sorry if I've missed it.
No, I haven't. Yeah, thanks, Cassim. Agenda item number 4. I was too quick to try and get to the members of public that were here to talk to us about all the things that they want to raise. Agenda item 4, minutes from the last meeting held on the 12th of March 2026. So for members that were there, can I ask that they were a correct record of the minutes? Councillor Miguel, do you want to come in?
Yeah, if you can just suggest a couple of matters arising from the minutes, if that's okay, Chair. Yeah, so I do agree that they are accurate. There's a couple of things. So in the meeting, I had addressed a concern of about £7 million on sickness, on staff-related sick pay, or the cost of that. And the question that I raised at the time was whether the 7 million was just for Q3 or up to Q3. And I was told I would be given a response to that. Now, it was an election shortly after that, so I may have had a response and missed it. So if that is the case, can that just be provided again via email to members, please? The other thing is, I think it's in the resolution part, item 3, there was a number of things there, such as we were promised a breakdown of sickness by service area rather than just a general one, including the associated costs. There was also due an update on AI There was benchmarking associated with affordable housing. There's a number of items which, like I say, the election was there, so maybe I've missed it, but could those be provided again if possible, please, if they haven't already?
Brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Murgo. Yeah, certainly. I think we'll follow that up because it's important that. Sorry, Balvinda, did you want to come in on that point?
Yeah, certainly. In terms of the information regarding sickness, and we did at Scrutiny Committee for the budget scrutiny provide a breakdown function by function of sickness, but I can provide you an updated one, Councillor Muggle, and I'll also clarify the information regarding the total cost of sickness per year and give a breakdown of whether that's annual or for a specific period. And what I will do is, and apologies, I haven't reread the minutes, but I will take responsibility for following up on all the actions.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Balvinda. Yeah, Councillor Murgo.
Apologies, Chair. There was one more item on there, and it was about the Dudley Colleague Awards. And now I know the date of that has been changed for various circumstances. So if you just kind of have some clarification about that. We were told that we'd have early notice for councillors just to improve attendance. So I think it's important that the formal invitation has been sent out and it gets rolling. These things, it's a great idea, and we don't want it just to be something forgotten about. It's something that I think we do need to celebrate.
So through you, Chair, I can confirm that the date of the Colleague Awards is the 17th of September, and the calendar invite has been sent out to all 72 councillors, plus the senior leadership team. We've also informed the staff, and next week we will be doing a short survey to find out how many staff will be attending so that we can make sure that we cater for all the staff. And it's at the Black Country Living Museum. What I'll do, Councillor Muggle, is I'll re-forward the invite to you, but yes, it was sent out to all members. But it's the 17th of September and it will start, well, for councillors, it will start from 3:30 because the awards part of it will be first, and that will be by invitation only. So it'll be all elected members, it will be the nominees, and it will be those handing out the awards and the sponsors. And then from 5:30, all staff will be invited to the museum for to celebrate the colleagues who got their awards. And I'm pleased to say the event is fully sponsored, so it's not costing the council any money at all. But yeah, but I'll resend the invite.
Thank you for that, Balvinda. The reason I asked is because the invite says a hold for Dudley Colleague Awards. So if that can just be confirmed as the actual date, not just holding that date. And we did say in the last meeting that we'd invite councillors to submit nominations. Now, if we're talking the summer holidays as well, so it's only 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away. So I think that, and if we are going down that route, we need to get that ball rolling quite soon.
Yeah, it is in hand, and there will be the nominations categories will be out in the next few weeks. And yes, there will be opportunities for elected members to also make nominations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Balvinda. Thanks, Councillor Murgo. Some really important points there. I think the point on councillors being able to nominate, given some of the work that we know is going on, is a really important one. And just on the actions from last meeting, Balvinda, can you ensure that all committee members have got sight of those follow-ups in terms of what the questions were and what the answers are? Particularly, I think, important for new members to showcase that actions from this committee are then actioned and followed up, and we can get that sort of information out to committee members. Thank you.
Yeah. Of course, and my apologies, they weren't followed up. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. But what we will do is prepare a report that goes to all the committee.
Brilliant, that's great. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to agenda item number 6 in terms of the substantive business. So this is the sort of scrutiny committee work plan. I know members have had sight of this in terms of the draft work plan for the committee. And this is very much something where tried to put it together to incorporate some discussions that we've had, some discussions at an event a few weeks ago where we had members of the committee who were interested in potential items for scrutiny, and then that's been pulled together for consideration at this meeting. I mean, from my point of view, I think there's some really important things that we can look at. I think there's some really important functions this committee does in terms of the transformation piece, improvement plan, but also strategic things that, you know, I think are important around that sort of council vision, council plan. I'm keen as chair, though, to make sure we've got that flexibility to change things if we need to over the course of the scrutiny cycle, and also add in some of those pre-decision scrutiny items as well if members are minded to do so, because I think this is a really important committee and one where we can input into the stuff that's happening across this council. And I've made it very clear that I want this committee to play a role in terms of shaping what goes on, not just scrutinising what's happened, but also what's coming down the line. And I don't certainly want to see any reports over the next cycle of meetings that are just for noting, or the committee thinks I'm not sure what that sort of contributed to the scrutiny function. So I've made that very clear. But I'd welcome committee's thoughts on the draft work plan and anything that they might want inputted into, or any comments on what's on there. Councillor Muga.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I actually think it's quite a strong work plan that you've put together. So thank you for yourself and Councillor Azad's work on this. It seems quite comprehensive. One thing that I'd be quite keen on seeing is for each of these items, the ones that are data-led, some benchmarking with other local authorities and similar authorities. So it's really important that we can make an informed judgment. But I do think the work plan is quite thorough and focuses on what we need to focus on.
Brilliant. Sorry, Aftab, I'll just bring you in case there's... I jumped the gun again, didn't I? So just in case there's anything you want to add to what I've already said. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of key points that I would like to draw members' attention to, first and foremost, in terms of the actual formulation of the work plan, and just echoing the Chair's comments in terms of the flexibility and the ability for the committee to change the work plan during the municipal year, and also emphasise the importance of the contents of the scrutiny handbook. So the scrutiny handbook was introduced last year, and there is a variety of guidance within that scrutiny handbook, and that includes the actual work programme. So that's set out within section 3 of the scrutiny handbook, and that provides an extract from the statutory guidance. So within the statutory guidance, just drawing attention to that extract, it does say that effective scrutiny should have a defined impact on the ground, with the committee making recommendations extract and ensuring that there is that value and that tangible impact. And that's the reason why within the scrutiny handbook there is that mandatory requirement for any items coming towards the agenda of a scrutiny committee for the completion of a scoping document, and that scoping document will set out the real value and those tangible outcomes that we all want to see in terms of a scrutiny committee as a whole. So just really emphasising that point. And then just my final point in terms of drawing attention to the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny, the guidance that sits alongside in terms of the formulation of that work programme. And it sets out, when facing corporate priorities, local concerns, issues on the horizon, along with scrutiny of services delivered locally by other providers such as the NHS and utility companies, the range of possible topics which could be considered is potentially overwhelming. The temptation is to attempt to look at everything, but this suggests a superficial approach, which means that scrutiny work overall is too shallow and perfunctory to have real impact. To avoid this, councillors should consider assessing items against a consistent set of questions, such as: can scrutiny add value? Does it reflect public interest? Is the issue a priority? Will it duplicate? And finally, can impact be measured? So just drawing attention of those key points for members to consider.
Brilliant. Thanks, Aftab. I think that's formed part of that sort of agenda setting meeting, didn't it, around why some of these items I wanted on this agenda, where we can input into things where there's a transformation piece, bits of work that are just starting, things like the council vision and other stuff that's on there that probably a little bit more, that are a bit more specific in terms of things like My Dudley, customer contact channels, and the work on the improvement plan. So that was all part of the thinking of why this has been shaped into what it is this evening. Does anyone else have any comments? Councillor Davies yet?
Thanks, Chair. I'll start with a question before I actually decide if it's a suggestion or not. The Transformation Programme Office, is it up and running yet? If so, how long's it been up and running? And then I'll decide if I actually have got a suggestion on it. Don't know if Aftab or Balvinda can just answer that one.
Just through you, Chair, happy to answer the question. In terms of the transformation programme, key officers within the senior management restructure have now started their role, such as my colleague here, Amajit, and then also Alex Thorogood in terms of their substantive roles, and they will form part of that overall transformation agenda and that overall formulation of that transformation programme.
So Balvinder's got a hand up, but just what I'm after is the team fully constituted? Is it up and running? Obviously, we've got a few members, as you've just said, on board. Where I was going was, did we need to, at some point in the year, reflect on the performance of that team or the benefits of that team having been in place? Now, if it's not fully constituted, then I think it would probably be not efficient to do it this year. It's probably something for next year, but that's why I'm just trying to figure that out. So, Balvinder, if you...
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Chair, I had to step out to take an urgent call. So yes, Councillor Davis. So Alex, ironically, you're going to receive the first Council Improvement Plan report in the September scrutiny, where they're going to bring a full report. So Alex has employed his change and improvement lead, the business support manager, the corporate business support managers in place, which is Joanne Cook, who I think is known to many members. Her team's now establishing. Alex is bringing together programme directors. You can see Andrew, who's here, who's part of Alex's team running the programme. We are pulling together all the programme and project resources from the council, because we will have one centralised function for project, programme and improvement. So our aim is to use existing capacity where we can and bring in specialist resources as needed. So the team is starting to form. And the other thing to remember is Alex and Amajit have both some of our existing staff, like you have the old digital team. Well, that was made up of business change agents, project managers and digital. So they've all been sent over to Alex. So that team is building. So I think in September, you've got a really good opportunity to see his structure, see his priorities, scrutinise the improvement plan, make sure that the priorities you expect to see are happening in the right order. Now that team will also eventually oversee all programmes in the council. So whether we're building a new school, whether we are doing a capital programme, they will monitor all of that, which means that this scrutiny will then be able to see monitoring across all our capital programmes as well. That's part of the journey that we're on.
So, Chair, I suppose then I wouldn't recommend, I'm not going to put forward a proposal that we have a specific agenda item on that this year then, but I just note it's something we probably want to keep an eye on and just have that assurance throughout the year that those teams that make that office are onboarded and established in accordance with the plan.
Yeah, I can assure members that so we secured Alex and Amajit, who work very close together, along with Gurdeep, who's technology lead. So, quite a strong team there, supporting the council. But the appointments that we have made for the other permanent roles, we have been really fortunate. We've attracted some very, very strong, high caliber candidates. I was interviewing today with Children's, and again, we've been really fortunate in attracting some very high caliber candidates from neighbouring councils. So it is really rewarding to see the quality of applications we're getting and the candidates that we're able to secure. But September, Alex will be here to give you a full update. Thank you.
Thanks, Balvinda. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Davis. No, really important point. And like I say, I put the two in there on the improvement plan with that in mind in terms of specific things that we might want to bring. And that is a good suggestion in terms of one that can come to September, as well as other broader things around the improvement plan. Are there any other comments from members? No? Okay. So if there's no further questions, obviously members have seen the recommendations set out in the report. Does the committee agree with the recommendations? Brilliant, thank you. So we move on to agenda item number 7, and this is around the ERP, which I presume, Andrew, are you going to present this one with Balvinda with, is it double act?
Yes, I think Balvinda wanted to do an introduction though.
Brilliant, no, that's great, thank you. Over to you, Balvinda.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I will pass over to Andrew, but this project is quite a critical one in our transformation journey around our core business. So this project will deliver a single version of the truth in respect of our establishment data for our workforce. It will then link that to the finance data, not just for our permanent workforce, but also our agency workers, our casual workers, acting up arrangements, honorariums. So, and then it will move further on to the next phase will then be to bring in our income management system. So what this piece of work seeks to do is it's not a technology project, it is a transformation program that says that as a budget manager, that every budget manager will have live information regarding their budget status of that day. They'll be able to forecast better, they'll be able to forward plan their staffing and resources. So I'm really proud that we've launched this project. It is a fast-paced project, but in Andrew, we've got a very experienced program manager. The reason that it is fast process, we aren't buying, because one of the biggest delays in a project like this is buying a new IT system. We are using, and the contract for that is in place. We are using the product that's called Unit 4, which is our finance system, and all of the plans are that will then become the single version of the truth for, as I say, anything to do with people, finances, income. So that's our income management system, and then next phase after that will be having all our contracts, commissioning and grants in that system. So as you can see, Andrew's program is building up a repository. What he's going to do now is just walk you through the scope of the project. But I just wanted to introduce it because in terms of our core business, it is a real cornerstone to automation and self-service for budget managers and human managers of people. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Balvinda. I shall share my screen and hopefully that should come up. Excellent. Okay, so it's called the One Dudley, One ERP System program. Now, I'll go through the first 3 to 4 slides. Hopefully, if you don't understand what an ERP system is now, you should do by that point, because the likelihood is, unless you've worked with it, you might not have heard of that initialization. So the purpose of today, what we're trying to do, or I'm trying to do, is present the strategic direction for the One Dudley, One ERP program. Invite some constructive challenge, so independent scrutiny of the approach that I'm proposing. Capture your insights, observations and recommendations that hopefully can strengthen the delivery. Test whether the proposed outcomes align with the Council's strategic priorities and improvement ambitions. Discuss the key risks, opportunities and success measures associated with the programme, and ensure the programme is informed by member feedback before progressing to the next phases. Moving on. So a little bit of background and context. So Dudley Council currently operates with disparate systems within finance, HR and payroll. This has led to data silos, manual reconciliation efforts and increased operational risk. Added to that, the current systems that are within HR expire, or the contract expires in November 2027. To simplify that, we have systems within HR and payroll, systems within finance. They talk or operate in different languages in simple terms. They can't communicate together to reconcile the data very easily. There's a lot of manual effort involved in that, where data is exported and squashed together, which isn't ideal. So with costs likely to rise significantly, a decision was previously made to implement an ERP system. An options appraisal was carried out and a solution decided was consolidating these functions into a single Unit 4 ERP solution. I'll just specify the software that's currently in finance is the Unit 4 software at present. So it's kind of an expansion into HR and payroll rather than just a clean implementation. This programme will drive transformation across the council in the way that finances are delivered. Ultimately, better reporting and management control will be achieved through that integration. The current state at the moment, so why we really need to do something or are doing something. There's no consistent view of the estate's workforce. So those two systems not being able to talk to each other, they don't, like, quite often or frequently don't align. So you might ask a similar question of each. So as simple as how many people work at the council, and you might get a slightly different answer from both systems. Neither is wrong, they're right in their own way. It's just their methodologies and update times and frequencies creates that inconsistent view, which it's not good, it's not acceptable really, so we need to do something about it. That leads to low confidence in the accuracy for many things, but in particular expenditure viewed by teams, groups and projects. There's no single source of truth that we can all have real faith in. Conflicting reports, in particular in relation to the establishment. So those two systems conflict with each other. Excuse me. So the solution, we implement a single system used by all teams known as an enterprise resource planner, or ERP. So all of those disparate systems provided by one company can talk to each other, update in real time. That's what's known as an ERP, enterprise resource planner. Agreed and governed establishment controls between all teams. So there's no different methodologies between how we do things in different areas. It reconciles in real time, delivering consistent single source of truth. We're going to document all processes for the to-be environment with a continuous improvement lens to remove waste and actions that lead to poor quality outputs, such as spreadsheet usage. So we're not lifting and shifting bad practices or practices that perhaps could be better, if you like. We're going with a clean slate. What's the best way of doing that? Let's put that in place. Challenging everything through a continuous improvement lens. Implementing process governance to prevent future non-standardized working. So the single best way to implement continuous improvement is to have standardized, repeatable processes, because then you can make small tweaks, monitor the impact, evaluate it, and make different tweaks to improve again. And that, in a nutshell, is the continuous improvement cycle. But you need that standardized ability to be standardized and repeatable before you can achieve that. Introduce a collaborative culture of teams working together and not in silos. So we don't want teams to drift apart and create different methodologies. By operating on the same system, where they're interdependent on each other, meeting with each other, taking joint responsibility for processes that transform through multiple teams, that's going to prevent that drift apart and keep them consistent throughout in their approach and methodologies. Well, I'll just pause there. That's the point at which I was hoping everybody is now absolutely clear on what I mean when I say an ERP. I'll just pause to check, make sure if anybody wants any explanations on that. All okay, excellent. I'll move on. In terms of the timeline, I'll give a small caveat to this. We're currently in the planning phase, and what that means is we're looking at the current situation in depth in terms of how much effort's involved with tweaking what's happening in finance at present, the data quality and things that need to be transitioned. All of that has an impact on this time taken for each of these steps. So whilst I'm sharing this, there will be some small tweaks, but ultimately the go live, because that's in line with HR and payroll's current contract ending, that's the kind of cut off. Whatever tweaks do come, we're making sure we get to that deadline with a live system, because throughout all of this, we cannot interrupt service. To explain it in a little bit more detail, so hopefully the approach is a little clearer. The way that the finance team are operating the Unit 4 software at the moment, it's been in place for over 10 years, I think close to 20. So for all the right reasons, it's been amended, customized, altered, made to meet requirements over that time, and it's became a system that is quite far removed from the standard vanilla implementation if you were to buy it off the shelf and implement it. Now, it's operating and meeting finance requirements at the moment, and all of those changes have been done for the right reasons. But if we want to put this system into our HR and payroll team, we need the finance area to operate in such a way that is the standard methodology and standard setup, so we can simply implement HR and payrolls modules, and then they can talk together. So this section at the top here, called finance optimization, is effectively changing the system that finance currently have, aligned to all requirements legally and best practice. So then when we put in the HR and payroll system, probably around September, late September this year, they will start talking to each other seamlessly and updating and reconciling in real time. We then go into a UAT phase. Clearly, we can't risk pay slips being incorrect. So we actually run 3 payment cycles, and it will not go live with people's real wages until it's correct to the penny. Absolutely has to be correct. So there are test systems and checks in there to make sure before anything really goes into affecting people. And then go live, as I said. Outside of that, we're also replacing our income management tool, but that's not in the scope of the agenda today. It's just on the timeline in front of us, but I'm happy to answer questions on that if needed. Programme-wise, I do have a lot more detail on steering groups and governance, but just this is on here to show that we now have a regular cycle of steering groups, working groups, all of the governance in terms of risk issues, actions, decision logs, meetings, minutes, escalation routes, and a good solid cover of resource and senior people capable of making decisions to unblock anything that's delaying us. Move on from the timeline. This explains a little bit about that meeting structure and escalation routes. I'll start from the bottom. So the workstream meetings, these are for the guys that are actually building the system, implementing it, doing the testing, gathering requirements, etc. Currently, I've got them set up weekly, but in reality, I talk to them on a daily basis, sometimes hourly, about the work that they're doing, making sure it's on track. They report to a steering group on a fortnightly basis, where they present their progress against their objectives and deliverables, raise risks issues that we haven't been able to mitigate in the interim. That is then oversaw by the Oversight and Assurance Board, which then comes up to Scrutiny Committee, which is yourselves, and then Cabinet as well, so setting that strategic direction and so on. In a little bit more detail, I split the programme into work streams. You might call it work packages. It's quite a large programme, so we need to break it into chunks that are manageable, that have the right level of ownership, governance, capability. So we split them into clusters that kind of make sense to the people that are within them. They share the capability to be able to do their little chunk of the work. So the first one I've called Delivering for People, which is effectively HR and payrolls work. The second is Finance Excellence and Intelligence. So this is optimizing what's there, but once we've got past those phases, there are some opportunities in order to make finance even better than it currently is, so the reports can be more intelligent, we can do a bit more forecasting and future budgeting with the capability that we're getting. Income management, this is the tool by which we take payments from residents or elsewhere if we need to. That's a work stream in its own right. I also split out trading services. So by trading services, we mean the schools and colleges that we process and academies that we process payslips for. The reason I split that out is that they are a unique set of stakeholders. They are not users of the system in the same way employees of the council are. They need to be treated slightly differently. So we've got Matt in there who's works with these people and knows them. So we're in a good position with that to make sure they get the service they deserve. And then wrapped around all of that, we've got a comms and engagement team or person at the moment, but expanding into a team with Holly Bremner. In any element of change or small or large, communication and having people on side is the single most important factor. So having that engagement, telling them what's happening, informing them how they can be involved, etc., is crucial. Underneath there, you'll see that the workstream leads are named, but there's also, it says SG rep, that stands for steering group representative. So that's somebody a little bit more senior than the workstream lead, who comes to the steering group, challenges their work, but can also help them overcome obstacles, remove blockers. Underneath there, I'll just, go back. So some of those have a question mark against them. That's since been resolved since these slides were put together last week. So that's covered, and I shall update before sharing after the meeting. We have a tech lead because it is a technical program, so we need to have a tech representative within each work stream, but the work streams themselves are led by the subject or area leads. It's not led by technology people. It's led by the end users, with technology people forming part of it and guiding, meeting the requirements of the person who's going to be an end user or a major stakeholder. Underneath there, there's kind of my little assessment of the health in terms of resource of each of these work streams. So I specified that we need a rep, we need a work stream lead, we need a subject matter expert, and we need somebody who's permanent. This can't be represented in any work stream entirely by temporary resource, because all of that knowledge then leaves the organisation once the programme's done and they go. So it may be that a single person fulfills multiple criteria in each work stream, but ultimately, if it's blue on the screen, that means it's complete, that's satisfied. You'll see there's some concern to the right with comms engagement. That's because Holly has been covering the entirety of that work stream. I expect that to be blue and complete within 2 weeks. So her team is recruited, they've got start dates, and within 2 weeks I should be briefing them on what's required for the programme in terms of comms and engagement. In the interim, despite that being amber and red, Holly has been dedicated in delivering and creating plans, intentions, so when they come in, they're not coming in blind, they will take over. So I'm not overly concerned at present. If that was to remain amber and red for the next month or two, I may have some issues to raise, but at the moment that seems to be in hand. Business change and readiness approach. So business change tends to be more about the people. Business readiness tends to be about systems, processes in program management methodology. I like to put the two together because people use processes and processes are for people. So stakeholder engagement. We're working closely with services, managers, members throughout the programme to ensure requirements are understood and colleagues are engaged in shaping the future solution. So I'm quite proud to say that in the last month or so, the HR and finance team has been represented within the programme and had a chance to contribute. Around about 90% of the team members have had some sort of say in inputting requirements, feedback, challenging myself, asking questions, understanding what's going on in there. They are going to be the end users, so it's absolutely crucial that they have a hand in it. Business readiness assessment, so regularly assessing organisational readiness, identifying impacts, dependencies in areas requiring additional support before key milestones. It's something we continuously do throughout the programme. Communications and engagement, as I've mentioned, Holly's delivering that in collaboration with us and is underway with it. Training and capability, so providing role-based training, guidance and ongoing support to ensure colleagues have the confidence and skills to use the new system effectively. There are multiple types of users, so we will be tailoring that dependent on the audience. So some people will need specific training, some people might just need a user guide, and some people will only look at it because they receive their pay slip and they just need a nudge to say that's where you find it. Process improvement, so reviewing and standardising business processes to maximise the benefits of the new ERP rather than simply replicating existing ways of working. To give you a little bit of detail and flavour about that, I use a method called SciPOC to map processes. So the traditional way of mapping a process, or very common way, would be to log the steps. So A, B, C, D steps are done in that process. When I log a process, and I've got all the guys doing this, we log that process and then we say, well, what are the inputs to that process? Is it this bit of data? Is it a form from this person? Is it whatever it may be? And then we look at who provides it. So who are the providers? What are the inputs? Then we look at the outputs of the process and who are the customers of those outputs. So it could be a dashboard, who sees the dashboards, what decisions does it inform, which committee, which meetings take it. So we look at the process in a holistic view and ensure that we capture that entire environment in its whole and make sure that anyone who impacts or is impacted by it has some sort of say, and we have some sort of way of measuring that impact on that process. We don't just look at it in isolation. And then we remove waste as well, because in any process, there's some waste that can be removed. Financially, Small caveat with these figures, there is a meeting scheduled for, I believe, 23rd of September to go through these in more detail. What I can say is the figures for the top two tables are absolutely accurate as of today, and the implementation costs are a forecast which we still stand by. Questions that we've got are around the funding, and a full up-to-date version of that will be delivered in September. But the cost of current versus the proposed or implemented systems, those are accurate, but I won't linger on that because you will get that detailed view in September. Key risks and issues that could derail the programme. The business process redesign. So failure to redesign and standardise business processes may result in old, not great processes being replicated where there's room for improvement. I think of the words I've used and the emphasis I've placed on my approach should show that that has been mitigated through strong programme governance and monitoring. There's a comprehensive project plan with clear deliverable milestones and a period of evaluation post-system being in place to ensure it's optimised. We've got dedicated programme team support to secure leads and support all businesses, secure to lead and support all business processes. So we do have a business analyst working with me. Misbah is fantastic and has been supporting all of the teams with this. Another potential risk category is poor data quality and migration. So what we don't want to do is lose all of the old data. And it's possible when you move systems that you lose that ability. What we're going to do is establish a dedicated data cleansing workstream, implement strict data validation rules before migration, and ongoing monitoring assurances throughout the migration process. What we've also got is a delivery partner who have transferred data to Unit 4 from our current provider previously, multiple times. And we've got their consultation support to guide and help us structure that data before it's moved in the correct format based on their vast experience of doing so previously. So in many ways that issue is mitigated, although, risk is mitigated. We'll keep it and keep an eye on it because it is a crucial one. Adoption of self-service. So employees and managers may be reluctant to adopt new self-service functionality or fail to use it effectively. To mitigate that, we're delivering a comprehensive communications and engagement plan, providing role-based training and user guidance, and ongoing support during and after implementation to encourage adoption. We've got myself, the rest of the programme team in Misbah. We've also got 6 consultation days with our implementation partner to support with that. I do believe that's mitigated, but it stays on the register because we can't take our eye off it. That kind of answers the question to change management skills as well. So insufficient organisational change capability could reduce adoption of new ways of working. That's mitigated through the dedicated programme manager and stakeholder management and all of the reasons I've just been mentioning. I think in terms of the programme management and our capacity to deal with it, we've got it. What I would say is that the appetite for change within the organisation fits into that too. So we're doing our best to mitigate that, but wherever people are concerned, there's unpredictability. I think we've got the right amount of resource focused on that to ensure that we deal with that as and when certain concerns arise. And we're making sure it's on the register to keep an eye on it. Resource availability, this happens in every programme, it's not just this council. So competing organisational priorities may limit the availability of key business resources required to support delivery. I think we've got a good set of people within those work streams at the moment. Where there are resource concerns, the majority have been dealt with and allocated alternative solutions. Where typically a programme comes unstuck is if an unpredictable event occurs, some sort of incident, be it physical or natural IT, whatever it may be, you can't forecast those. However, in this programme, we are quite tight on contingency time. So that risk needs to remain, and we need to be aware that pulling any of this resource out of the programme could ultimately impact our ability to deliver by that overall deadline. So we've got commitment from the corporate management team to prioritise programme activity. We've got additional resources secured where possible and where needed. We've got regular resource planning and monitoring throughout delivery. Challenging timeline pressures. We've got at the moment, I believe, a clear, realistic delivery plan with defined milestones and dependencies. We've got strong governance, programme oversight and regular progress monitoring. We've got early identification and management of risks and issues, and we've got established governance arrangements. I've witnessed in the last couple of months the programme cadence, so the going do something, reporting back to work streams, reporting back to steering groups has improved dramatically. My gut feel as a programme manager, we're in a very strong place. It's realistic. There's not much contingency. We need to keep an eye on that. But at the moment, I think we're in a fair to high confidence level in terms of control. I'm comfortable. So what was this actually for? What is it going to do? So improving core business functions. So the One ERP system is more than a technology replacement. It is a key enabler of organisational improvement. It will help the council modernise the way it works, improve services and build the foundations for future innovation. So it modernises business processes, standardises and simplifies finance, HR and payroll, reduces manual activity and improves consistency across the council. That enables better decision making. It provides trusted real-time management information, enabling faster evidence-based decisions and stronger financial control. Productivity and efficiency. So the automation, routine administrative tasks reduces duplication and allows colleagues to focus more on delivering services. Whilst AI isn't in scope of this programme, if you want AI to work, and the software that we're purchasing does have the option to expand to AI in future, you need to have high quality data. I'm sure we've all tried some sort of AI system online. There are many now. And the answer you get depends on the quality of your question. And it's no different using AI in the council. We need high quality, dependable data to get high quality, dependable answers from AI. The employee experience delivers intuitive self-service tools, improving access to information and simplifying everyday processes for managers and employees. And financial stability. So it supports the council's medium and long-term financial resilience through efficiency gains, improved reporting and opportunities for continuous improvement. I think I've covered the key message, the message to the right about the AI. The key message is it's about improving the council's core business functions, strengthening organisational capability and creating a modern digital platform that supports better services, better decision making and future innovation. And then finally, a kind of table version of the timeline I shared earlier. These are the milestones that we currently have scheduled. The same principle applies. There's a little caveat to some of these dates. They may shift about, but the ultimate delivery date of go live, that's not non-negotiable unless it's earlier. We're going for it. So in summary, mobilisation is completed. We've achieved sign-off at steering group of that mobilisation. The work streams are in place. They've got their deliverables, their objectives. They know what they need to do to make their deliverables come to life. Enbridge, our delivery partner, who are supporting us with this, are fully engaged following procurement completing. We've got workshops, they're already underway to inform the planning stage. All work streams have been signed off, and they've also installed governance and addressed numerous resource concerns. So overall, at the moment, the programme is green. There's a lot of work to do. I'm comfortable, bordering on confident with it, and the guys are working on this have done a fantastic job of getting into that programme cadence. So we're in a healthy position, is my overall summary. And I will finish there and open up to questions, Chair.
Brilliant, thanks. Thanks for that, Andrew. Yeah, just a couple of comments from me and a few questions to kickstart things. First comment is for the committee more broadly, and this is a really important agenda item in terms of what it's looking to do. But us as a committee have got an opportunity in terms of our comments and any recommendations that we make this evening sort of being incorporated into the governance arrangements, incorporated into the programme steering group and into the sort of programme planning. So I'd just ask members to take that into consideration when they're contributing and any recommendations that they want to put forward during our sort of discussion on this. My other sort of comment and question on this is obviously it's a really key piece of work for the council in terms of the way that we operate internally, and it's one that we need to get right because not only will it help in terms of improve internal, but it will improve our ability to deliver things and our perception externally as well, I think. I think the point you've made and the point Balvinda made earlier in terms of that single source of the truth is a really important one. I think it's worrying at the minute in the report where we talk around, you know, that sort of view on the workforce. There's not a consistent view on that. There's a bit in there that I wanted to ask around, on one of the slides was around reporting on the establishment. And I don't know if that was a typo or whether we were talking about the establishment in broader terms, but what that actually meant in layman's terms for someone like me. And then the other questions I wanted to ask were, are we also looking at other councils and the operating models that they've implemented, such as this, and the effectiveness of it and some of the best practice that we might be able to learn from them, and some of the mistakes they might have made, some of the barriers that they might have faced in implementing a new system like this, if it's the same one or something similar. And then on the finance stuff, I know you said that will be coming back at a future meeting, but from looking at it, and this might just be me not being very good at maths, but the question I really wanted to ask was, is this, from what you've put on the slides, it looks like it's going to end up costing more after it's been implemented than currently, and that's not a criticism, it's just a question because of the transformation that it will hopefully achieve. But is that the right assumption to make on that slide, or is it just me being bad at maths? But I think the broader point I want to make on this as well is it's a piece of work that we must get right. We can't spend all this time and the money that's being sort of spent on this to end up in the same place where we've got silo working, where we've got not got the right view of things across the council. So I think it's a piece of work that we must get right, and we must get right once and for all, because I think, you know, during my time on the council, there's been many iterations of things and there's been money spent on things that have tried to do something, but then we seem to end up in the same place. So that would be my only sort of comment on it in terms of making sure that we get this right. And obviously the questions, if you can address those before I open it out to committee. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take those in order. So establishment, as I understand, in terms of an ERP, is talking about the entirety of the workforce. If that answers that question. In terms of learning from best practice, yes, we absolutely are. So Unit 4 is installed as an ERP system within a number of other local authorities. One being Wolverhampton, just up the road. We've talked to several, and we're getting in touch with another one today. Forgive me, the name escapes me. But absolutely are. So we are utilising Unit 4 contacts to have conversations directly with the software owners in a couple of local authorities at the moment. Without Unit 4 present, and getting full and honest feedback about mistakes they've made, what they did right, what they would do differently. It has been useful. A couple of them have told us that, yes, they're not getting the most out of it because of XYZ decisions, which we've now incorporated into our way of working. Namely, it's around ensuring that the finance area operates to a standard set of, or chart of accounts, it's called. So making sure the finance area operates in a very standardized, simplified way that meets all of the statutory obligations. That allows the HR and payroll teams modules to talk with finance and achieve that one source of truth. So yes, we've learned from that. It's been invaluable in truth, those conversations. The next question was regarding the finance. Those numbers are correct, and it is showing an uplift in cost. I can't answer this in full. What I can say is the imminent end of the current systems within HR and payroll were looking at a significant uplift in their costs if we remained with the current provider. I don't have those figures, and we will come back with them. But from memory, I believe that even with the uplift, it was a sensible financial choice against the alternative. But we will answer that question in due course. And then with the silo working, just to give a little bit of confidence, I set the programme up when I took it over about 8 to 10 weeks ago on the basis that we cannot have silo working. And that means that the programme team, the work streams, need to get rid of that immediately and lead with it as an example. Within that time frame, the delivering for people work stream and the finance related work streams are working together. They've already come up with ways that they can support each other better, are attending each other's team meetings, not just on the programme, but in other areas. They're having working groups together. They're documenting their processes collaboratively, because what goes into a HR system impacts the finance teams and vice versa. That's already been seen in practice. Attending their team meetings with multiple members from both sides present, that in itself is adding value simply by getting them to talk to each other in an open and honest way that say, do you know when you do X, Y, and Z, this impacts me A, B, C, and they're doing that already. I can see that that's a cultural change to the way of working that's having an impact. It will take time, and I think this programme, given the length of time that it's got to do that, will have a lasting effect. Those habits will form. I can already see that they're happening. Hopefully that answers your question.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andrew. I'll open it up to committee. Councillor Atkins, you want to come in first, and then Councillor Mugger.
Thank you, Chair. I think I couldn't agree with your comments more about this needing to have a substantial impact on the way things run, and getting to that single version of the truth has been a bugbear of mine for the last couple of years. I think with this project, it's definitely ambitious, and I think I just want to get assurance from yourself around. I think one of the biggest risks in itself to delivery of this kind of project and this kind of project management is the risk register itself. And how do we ensure that that's a live, living and breathing thing that the various work streams adopt, so that we can get that early oversight and that we prevent that sort of slippage that can so often occur with these, complex projects. Sometimes these risks, like on the slide, and I'm not suggesting it's for one moment, but sometimes it can be we've highlighted it, it won't happen, we put a mitigation in, we'll forget about it. How do we make sure that that's just continuously monitored through the process to make sure that the change that's required is there, and that there's not that, as I say, slippage of the work streams, I suppose?
Thank you for that. So the RAID log, RAID Risk Action Issue Decision log, that's in place. One of the first things I did with the programme was to explain my approach to a RAID input. So if any of the team, or anyone outside the team, in fact, comes to me with a risk or an issue, I structure it in such a way that it started with the sentence, there is a risk that. They have to explain what the risk is. As a result of, so there is a risk of X as a result of Y. They need to say what the impact is and what the likelihood of it coming to fruition is, so the likelihood of a risk being realised. That is then assigned to an owner. So depending on the level of the risk, if it's something small sat within a work stream, it would be the work stream lead. If it's something bigger, it goes to the steering group. That's then assigned to an owner, and before it's entered into the RAID log, they need to agree a set of mitigation actions. So we score that risk based on its current state, and then we score it based on the mitigation actions that are agreed. The mitigation actions then go into the project plan, where I chase the people for delivery of those mitigations actions on a weekly basis. They update at the steering group whether they've completed those mitigation actions, and then we update the RAID log if once they confirm and evidence that they have been done. We also run through the RAID log in every steering group to run over anything that's high scoring that we perhaps haven't mitigated, and we can put something additional in, because sometimes we do have to accept a level of risk in a programme. We do certain mitigations, but we can't quite remove all the risk. So we go over risks that we haven't quite removed, but we know are there, and we do that in the steering group. But the bigger ones that have still got a score there and need that mitigation actions, they are managed as actions as any other action or deliverable within the programme, and chased on a regular basis to make sure it's done and evidenced.
Councillor Murgall, did you want to come in there?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. One is for Councillor Clark. This whole thing is going to cost 2.5 million in total over the next 5 years. The benefits of having this system, I don't think anyone can argue with it. Is 2.5 million worth it, first of all, is one question, just from your opinion. And then in terms of the timeline pressures that you spoke about, you've mentioned that you're fairly confident that you'll meet those deadlines. Now, my main thing is about the payroll. You said you had 3 months where you're going to do effectively a dummy run, so to speak. Is there a backup, say the timelines don't go ahead, the contract of the current payroll ends and we're not ready? Do we have a contingency in place for that? Is there an exit plan in place or some kind of contingency in place? We don't want employees not to be paid for X amount of time. That's going to be disastrous. So is there a contingency plan for that? And then you spoke about, you have spoken to several other authorities, including Wolverhampton, that are using this system and some of the lessons learned. Could you give an example of one of the things that they've said, actually, our implementation didn't go well, and what we've done to address what feedback they've given?
Councillor Clark, did you want to come in first on the first one, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think in terms of, we're already outlaying a certain amount anyway, and I think we are using Unit 4 at the moment. So we are, the risk of using this is a lot less than it would be to be using a new system such as Orion that Birmingham have put in place, where they've actually had issues and problems with that one. So yes, I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's definitely the right system for us. And as we are already using Unit 4 anyway, the product is right. And I think based on the fact that quite often within the finance team and the HR team, there are a lot of siloed working in terms of almost spreadsheet type work. This is going to bring it all together, and definitely I think it's the right product for us now. I believe Enbridge are going to be the people that are actually putting it in place. I think they're going to be doing a great job. So you need to keep an eye on it. I think it can be delivered on time and can be delivered within budget.
Thank you. So just based on what you said, it roughly works out 100,000 more each year, but because of the benefits of the system, in theory, we could save some of that in man hours that we haven't actually, the simple figures here don't actually equate for.
Yeah, that's correct. And so what it will do is it'll stream. I mean, we haven't updated this system for 10, 15 years, and we've needed to do that. So this is the right way of doing it, and it's the right time to do it.
Okay, so in answer to the payroll question, perhaps that slide wasn't entirely clear. So we are still moving those sequence of events around. What we're attempting to build in here, the 3-month parallel run, if you like, that I talked about. Ideally, we would like a fire break between those 3 months and actually going live. So that gives us the contingency. All experiences that we've investigated and spoke to have said that typically on the first month, there's a discrepancy. Second month, it's down to pennies. The third month, it's 0 pence. That is the standard implementation in terms of variance, but the last month we should be at 0. I'd like at least 1 month contingency in there just in case there are any issues. Also, if it weren't to work in that period, we do have the alternative. We could extend the current if we needed to. That would be costly and difficult, but perfectly doable, and will be built into plans. There will be a checkpoint. You have to have a go, no-go decision point to mitigate that risk. In terms of the example of improvement, the main thing that has caused problems to other organisations is where they've tried to be, for want of a better phrase, too clever with their implementation. So the out-of-the-box simplified product meets statutory requirements adequately. It's a product that Unit 4 want to sell into local authorities. They've designed it to meet our statutory requirements. Beyond that, local authorities have tried to change it to meet certain requirements that are not a statutory requirement. That adds a level of complexity which ultimately does not meet stakeholders' requirements. So we've been very clear with all of our stakeholders. We are going back to a vanilla chart of account system that will give you exactly what you need and not much more. It will give you what you need, the ability to make decisions, accurate views, and a foundation on which to build further insights in the future. That's the biggest thing that we have learned. There are other snippets that people have talked about. This isn't any different to any other program, but how teams have worked on certain software for 5-10 years or more, and then when you change it, how you communicate it to them, etc. It's not specific to ERP. It's change management, which we've covered. Thank you.
I've just got Councillor Azad first, and then yourself, Councillor Davis.
I think we could, couldn't we? Can I clarify, just from my own understanding, whether the ERP encompasses those sort of systems that directly interact with our residents, so when they pay the council tax or service charges? If the answer is yes or no, I suppose still, how will our residents experience the benefits of this new system or investment or transformation?
In answer to the question, no, they won't interact with it, with the ERP system. In terms of benefits to residents, it's kind of a foundation. It will enable better decisions for us in future. If we go on to do the AI modules that can be added on with the foundations of solid data, it's difficult to give a specific example, but what it, for example, could do if the data is accurate is really good forecasting for resource requirements in certain places, so we could improve services. It could forecast things like if we were to combine it with contact data, people calling in, asking questions, letters, etc. Use of resource to respond to that. If that data is solid, we could use AI to merge those two and then ask the question about where resource needs to be and when, and that would improve service. But that's beyond the scope of this programme at present. This is an enabler that will allow that in future.
Thanks, Andrew. 1 second, Councillor Davis. Balvinder, I'm just conscious, I know you've got your hand up. Do you want to just come in on something specific before I bring in Councillor Davis?
Yeah, it's just in relation to a couple of the comments that Councillor Muggle made. So in terms of, I completely agree with Andrew. 3 months running of a dual payroll is a really solid test, because first month, we do expect to get errors, but it gives us time to fix them, etc. However, if all 3 months didn't succeed, I'd just like members to imagine that if we had an outage of our IT systems, one of the business continuity arrangements is you have the data to pay, for example, what you paid the previous month. That's standard business continuity arrangements that would apply to our frontline services. So, if we had an outage, the bills, the benefits that we paid the previous week, the month, could that be raised? So there is business continuity arrangements, which Amajit, who sat there, is now responsible for emergency planning and business continuity. So it is our plans alongside that to make sure that's beefed up, because whilst this ERP system has highlighted that we will be getting a new payroll and we need to make sure it's getting right. We also need to ensure that through business continuity, we've got that ability to make sure that, you know, our council can function in the event of any outage. Now, we have backups, as you know, for systems, we have backups of data, we have all sorts of arrangements to mitigate that, but that is an option that we don't want to go through, but it is there for us to give members that further reassurance. The other thing, you talked about the additional costs of the product. What you are getting is that capacity release. So we talk about the, you know, how resources are stretched in the council. As we implement more and more products like this, that one of the biggest gains is capacity release. So budget managers being able to get information live, you know, colleagues in finance and HR being released away from manual spreadsheets to run these products in-house. It will make things like year-end processing much easier, because it will all be within the system. At the moment, within finance, we use Unit 4, but not fully, and it's never been fully used. So this gives us an opportunity to provide that capacity to the offices, to those teams and colleagues that, you know, because actually working in manual spreadsheets is more time consuming. And just for Councillor Azad's comment about will this hit residents, it won't hit them directly, but it will in an indirect way, because by freeing up capacity, it means that those officers in the frontline teams have got more capacity to support residents in the services they need, because this is about making information accessible, live, real time, and the ability for managers to run their own reports and understand their budget position at any time during the year. So it releases finance from having to provide that information to us. It releases HR, but it also gives, you know, frontline managers a lot more capacity release in terms of being able to manage their part of the business. So I hope that helps, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, it does. Thanks for that, Balvinda. Councillor Davis, you want to come in there?
Thanks, Chair. When you try to bring in any system that applies across the board, because people used to use different systems and we want to bring people together under one, it's almost, and I got that sense from the presentation, that it's almost a one-size-fits-all approach is what we're aiming for. But the risk with that is one size doesn't always fit all when it hits the ground. So my question was going to be, how can it have... Does the system offer the functionality of being adapting for one department's needs over another? Does it have that flexibility? Now, actually, your final answer to one of Councillor Muggle's questions, when you said other local authorities had tried to do that and that's backfired, and therefore we were thinking of taking a more single version approach. That, to me, and the fact that the other local authorities tried to create functionality within the system actually says to me there might be unmet need here by this software, because if other local authorities were trying to flex it to meet requirements, clearly it wasn't successful for them, but we might have the same requirements. So how will we be meeting those requirements that it's not meeting in the vanilla form?
Very good questions. So the reason other local authorities had some challenges or failures is about that customization. The approach we're taking is to adopt the vanilla out of the box standard one size fits all, to use your terminology. What we have done is document requirements with each of the teams in detail. So we know what their current requirements are, what their nice to haves are, additional requirements, etc. The teams have been through the product in detail and the requirements over multiple calls, workshops. We believe we are 99% meeting their requirements, and that's confirmed by the teams, not my opinion. The 1% that's not being met is being mitigated, and they've worked on a solution for themselves. That's day one. That's day one product. We're meeting 99% in the words of the workstream leads, who actually will be the end users, the team leaders who will be managing that product once I've stepped away from the program. Day two and onwards, we have the option to do some further development. You can do some level of customization, At the moment, we're warning against it because there is to get technical, this product will be be moving to a cloud platform in about 3 years. So anything that we customize, we would have to then do again, so we would be doubling effort in terms of work. If at the moment we can meet all of those requirements, and all indications are it's 99%, we may do small tweaks after the program's completed and we're all happy with it and it's working correctly. There is the possibility to ask Unit 4, the provider, to do a tweak under their supervision that is replicated in both HR, payroll and finance modules in a controlled and measured way. But in this first rollout, the absolute recommended approach is one size fits all. Don't adjust it. It will work. It's proven to work. Do it right this way and stick to that. The fact that we're meeting the requirements that we've got documented, all but a tiny little one or two that can be mitigated, I think we're in a good position. I believe we are. But it's a very valid point, and one I just go on to say as well, in terms of not just functionality, the look and feel of this system is not quite as modern as what the HR team is using at the moment. But having spoke to them about it and explained the reasons for the change and worked with them, involving them in the programme, getting them to document processes and submit how they would like things ordered in menus and so forth, it's kind of mitigated that. They're quite happy that actually perhaps the colours in the system are not quite modern and fancy. They're a little bit old-fashioned looking. They're okay with that as long as the functionality works and they've been involved with it. So valid points that we've come across, and we've done our best to mitigate them. Okay.
Thanks for the response, and I'm just thinking that if it's 1% we're identifying now of unmet need, when teams start to actually use it, that's likely to grow when they find out the system elements of it which they thought would work in a certain way aren't working in a certain way. So that 1% is likely to become 5%, 10%. We want to avoid that, obviously. So yeah, it's not really a question, because I know it's one clearly you're cognizant of, and it's probably going to be a focus for you. Yeah, it's not a question, but I just think it's one that you're going to have to keep an eye on, obviously, and it'll be interesting for us as a committee to do the same.
I'll come back to that. Absolutely. It's always impossible to do a like-for-like system with a different provider. They have to differentiate themselves, otherwise they wouldn't be in competition. What we do have is a testing period with test scripts that will test those requirements over a period of time, and the end users themselves will design those test scripts along with oversight and so forth, and we can certainly report back results of those to the committee and explain where it's at and what's being discovered. But yes, it's always at the forefront of my mind. Are we delivering what we need to deliver? That's my priority. So thank you.
Thank you. Cheers, Chair.
Brilliant. Thanks, Councillor Davis, and thanks for that, Andrew. I think it's a really important point, though, and one I don't think we can stress enough, because, as you say, if there's some worry about it now, when these things are up and running, it will eventually creep, and there will be more. And what we don't want to do is what I said at the start, is end up in a situation where we've got something that looks new and shiny and everyone says is fantastic, but doesn't actually meet the needs of what we need to do to transform the service. I think the feedback from workstream leads, I think, is really important. So if they're confident, then there's some assurance there. But I think for us as a committee, it's certainly something that we would want to, and I would certainly want to try and bring back at some point and look at again in terms of progress, and whether there's been any further creep in that, sort of percentage on whether it actually meets the needs or not. Because I think that's a really important point. Are there any other questions from committee? Sorry, Councillor.
I suppose from what you've just said, Chair. So if this was to return back in a year's time, how could we measure the success? How could we measure there's no mention of KPIs. How could we measure the success of this in a year's time if this programme was to return to this committee?
So there's two sets of measures in my mind. There's success measures of the programme, how well we're delivering against the objectives, and then there's the success of the software to meet its requirements when it's in place. So measuring the success of the programme, we have a set of objectives per work stream, deliverables agreed to meet those objectives, and each deliverable has a success measure, at least one, against them. There are multiple documented, such as, for example, some are measurable in, numeric, and some are binary, as in our finance attending HR team meetings, yes, no, because one of the deliverables is teams working together. In terms of the actual software and measuring that success, the accuracy of the tasks that it carries out, that is within the test criteria. It's yet to be defined. We're in the planning phase, so the full test criteria hasn't been defined. That can easily be shared and summarised with committee as and when required, and when it's produced. As an example, some of the test criteria may be is maternity pay calculated exactly the same way as it is in the old system for HR people? And we will take, say, 5 or 10 scenarios and run them through as a test and get the results. And I can come back and say, this was the test. We tested 10 scenarios. It was 100% accurate in terms of the calculation. I can bring that back and explain the test scenarios and whether it was successful or not, or if there's an error rate there. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and I wonder actually then, so it's one objective per work stream. So I wonder how many work streams there are and therefore objectives. And if it is possible to list those at this point or when you have them, so that we can view them at this stage or when they are available, so that again, in a year's time, for example, if it was to return, then it's something that we as members have seen or had sight of at this stage that we can compare with later on.
Okay, just one slight change. There's more than one objective per work stream. It depends on the work stream. But yes, there's multiple objectives, deliverables and measures of success. I'm more than happy to share them, Balvinder, sign them off if that's okay with you, Balvinder. There's no secrets. It's very logical, structured work by each work stream. So happy to share that.
Brilliant. Yeah, that'd be great if you could circulate that to the committee. And I think there's two things there from what Councillor Azad said. There's when this is being implemented in the latter stages of 2027 on the next cycle of scrutiny committees, it might be something that whoever the chair might be then and the committee might want to consider. For me as chair at the minute in this cycle, I think it would be important to bring this back at some point to see the progress on some of the things that you've mentioned. So I think there's two things there that would be really useful. Conscious of time, I'll move on. Do any of the committee members want to either comment on this or any specific recommendations that they want to make? I think from myself, I think it is around that. Obviously, all our comments and what we've said this evening, really important points made by members being taken into consideration into that whole structure of programme steering groups and oversight and governance arrangements. I think that's really important. I think the point Councillor Atkins made around that risk management is a really important one as well, in terms of not allowing that to just be on a table and for it to slip away. And then for me as chair, I will work with Democratic Services and officers in terms of bringing this back at a suitable point before the end of this cycle of scrutiny committee meetings, so we can actually see what progress has been made in advance of the finish of this cycle. So if members are happy with that, is that all agreed? Yep. Okay, thank you. So we move on to the next agenda item, which is the council vision, and this is the sort of consultation on the terms of reference. So Balvinder, do you want to introduce this and then?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, thank you, Chair,
Thank
and then Amajit will take over. So really, committee, this is an opportunity for you to input to the terms of reference for what is proposed as our council vision. So this will be a 10-year vision, and underpinning it will be 2 5-year council plans, the first of which will be attached to this vision. The aim of this will be a partnership document. It will cover the place. So it will also incorporate priorities, for example, through the NHS, through police, through our voluntary sector partners, etc. What it will also do at the same time is, many of you will be aware that we have a borough vision called Forging the Future. That vision now is 5 years old. And unfortunately, that vision was launched just before the pandemic hit. So I would say that it has made some progress, but it's not really delivered the place-based work that you would like to see of all the partners working together. So we will also take the opportunity to review that. And it's always, you know, good practice to review a vision halfway through. So this is our sort of vision, but it will also incorporate the borough vision elements that we as a council have to directly deliver. Why we've separated this off, this allows our residents, our members, our staff, our partners to say what do they expect from the council. It is a component of the borough vision, but it's specifically our responsibilities that then you can hold the organisation to account on. So these terms of reference were drafted. We have a third party that is helping us with all the focus groups, because one of the things I gave assurance to members when we first mooted this idea was that the consultation on this would be the most extensive that we've done. So we will incorporate all resident groups, all elected members, wards. We'll go to children and young people. We'll go to consult vulnerable adults, our voluntary sector, our voluntary groups, our faith groups. And again, this is an opportunity for you to look at the terms of reference on which the consultation for developing the borough vision will consider. And then, of course, the draft vision will come back to this scrutiny committee for you to have some pre-decision scrutiny on before it goes through cabinet and council. And this will be adopted by full council. So you will also have the opportunity for pre-decision scrutiny when you've got the draft vision. But it just felt important that the terms of reference that core business had the opportunity to scrutinise those to make sure, and really the purpose of today is to summarise the terms of reference, our approach to make sure that there's anything you want us to consider or add into this consultation. We will share with the committee all of the groups that we're consulting on and all of the different areas. So again, you know, if you say there's a certain business sector that hasn't been consulted, we can bring that in as well. So I just wanted to introduce that, but really pleased that Amajit's arrived as the Associate Director now, because he can take over this piece of work and then lead on it. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Balvinda. Amajit, do you want to come in now? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just a kind of executive summary to start it off in terms of why this matters, and I think Balvinda's touched on some of this, so I won't repeat everything, but obviously there's an opportunity to lay the foundation for Dudley's next decade. It's an opportunity to ensure that the long-term vision reflects all stakeholders within the borough, so residents, businesses, partners, communities, but providing a robust evidence base for those future decisions. It is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape how it looks, considering the journey that the council's been on. So by clearly listening to the voices, aspirations and ambitions of the people who live, work, learn and invest. So there are kind of 4 strategic pillars that we're proposing to follow. So the first one is obviously listening, so capturing the voice of the people within the borough, understanding, so analysing that voice and then seeing what evidence to identify common themes and emerging priorities. Key theme is actually co-create. So actually from that evidence, co-create a long-term vision which reflects all of our communities and partners, and then obviously deliver on that vision as well, which will translate into a council plan. So kind of talking about obviously why Dudley needs a new vision, and I know Balvinda's touched on this briefly, but obviously, you know, there's a chance to shape the next 5 years, especially with the journey that the council's been on and going on a positive journey now going forward. There's a chance to co-create a long-term vision that responds to change while building on our strengths. So thinking about some of those things around that vision will be, you know, making sure we've got thriving communities and inclusive economic growth, health and well-being, attractive places, environmental resilience and modern public services. So why now? Obviously we've got major regeneration taking within the borough, So when you look at, for example, the metro that's going to be coming through Dudley, changing population needs. So, you know, we know there is an ageing workforce and there's different, our population is changing constantly. Obviously, there is still financial pressures, so we do want to make sure that we are delivering good value for money. Advances in technology, so we know technology is constantly evolving, so we want to make sure that we're actually maximising the technology that we've got. Obviously, there is still a great demand on public service, so we want to make sure that we're actually able to deliver what our residents and our businesses require and our communities require of us. But also thinking about that one borough approach, there's a real opportunity here to strengthen our partnership across the borough with other public sector organisations, voluntary sector charities, and so forth. So thinking about a vision framework that we've pulled together in terms of how we'll come to that. So there is kind of like 6 stages to it. So obviously that first thing is around that community voice, making sure we capture all of that from those different stakeholders. That then obviously relates to our evidence and insight, which then will help shape some strategic priorities, which then obviously informs a council plan that enables transformation and delivery and will deliver better outcomes for Dudley. Some of our guiding principles that we've used around that kind of proposed vision framework is obviously making sure it's inclusive by design, it's evidence-led based decision making, partnership focused, making sure we're being transparent and accountable, and also applying long-term thinking, and having that in the back of our head that every decision within the council should be able to trace back to the community insight that we've gathered through this consultation. So thinking about our consultation objectives, so, you know, listening today will enable better decisions for tomorrow. Kind of just going, again, it presents a unique opportunity. So it's not been designed to actually simply gather opinions, but obviously to make sure that we create a robust evidence base to shape our future policy, investment decisions and service transformation across the council. So by engaging early, listening widely and analysing, we'll be better placed to develop an ambitious vision that's deliverable and representative of the borough as a whole. And that there goes into a bit more detail of what was on the earlier side, so I won't go into it too much detail so it's not kind of being repetitive. Again, coming on to the consultation design principles, so a successful consultation is measured not by only the number of responses, but the quality of responses that are received. So we've got these design principles to give assurance to members that it's actually being designed around that will guide every stage of engagement and decision making. Obviously, these principles will ensure that there's a transparent, inclusive, and is capable of generating insight that can help shape our long-term strategic direction. So firstly, it's about making sure that it's representative. So engaging people from every community, locality and demographically across the borough, which our third-party supplier partner will support us with. Making sure it's inclusive as well. So, you know, reducing those barriers to participation through accessible and targeted engagement. Following on from that is being accessible. So making sure that we actually provide a range of engagement methods that enable participation regardless of circumstances or digital access. Independence, that's where our third-party supplier comes in, so using that facilitation and robust governance to strengthen confidence in our findings. Then making sure it's all evidence-led, so, you know, combining the consultation findings with data, our performance information and wider intelligence to build a comprehensive evidence base, but then also all the way through making sure that we're transparent all the way through to that when our vision is delivered. So, you know, clearly communicating how feedback has influenced the development of the vision and the council plan. That final point there, I think, is quite crucial. You know, the integrity of the consultation process is fundamental to the credibility of the vision that we hope it will create. So thinking about our stakeholder ecosystem, you know, every stakeholder has a role to play, but residents do remain at the heart of the conversation. You know, this vision cannot be developed in isolation. So creating that shared ambition requires collaboration with everyone involved in the borough. So that's why it's been designed to engage with a broad range of stakeholders, recognising the different communities and that the different perspectives they will bring and the experiences which can hopefully create a rich understanding of Dudley's future. So as you can see, that there is a number of stakeholders involved. I won't go through them individually, but hopefully you've had time to reflect over them when the slides were shared. So in terms of our engagement methodology, obviously it's been designed as a structured and transparent journey. Beyond simply collecting responses, each stage will build on the previous stage, ensuring that insight is systematically analysed, validated, and then translated into strategic priorities. So, we'd start with the discovery phase, so raising that awareness that the consultation is taking place. We will then start the engagement, followed then by the listening, so capturing the actual opinions of people, analysing to then co-create and then deliver. Obviously, with it being a consultation for the borough, equality, diversity, inclusion is very important because the vision must reflect the diversity of Dudley. So therefore, it's been decided to remove any barriers so that people can participate freely. There will be a particular focus on engaging communities whose voices are often underrepresented in traditional consultation exercises. So we will be looking for our partner to deliver on that. And actually, rather than treating equality as a compliance exercise, we are going to make sure it's embedded throughout the programme to ensure that the vision genuinely reflects the experiences, needs and aspirations of the whole borough. So some of that will be obviously some of our commitments that we're looking at in terms of targeting those communities is obviously, I've mentioned before, inclusive by design, targeting those that have been underrepresented in the past, making sure that actually there is accessible participation for them, and then obviously monitoring their participation rates, and then if we need to do some extra work with them, we will do. So coming about actually how we plan to launch the campaign for the communications and the engagement. So, it will also, a key thing is how we're going to generate awareness and to encourage participation and sustain the interest throughout that programme. So we're going to have a coordinated campaign approach to maximise participation. So there'll be a digital aspect. So, we will be doing online surveys, put in QR codes on our website, links through partners and so forth. There'll obviously be the community aspect. So we will be doing roadshows, going out to people. So, whether that's still to be decided, but libraries, we could be going to shopping centres like Merry Hill to engage with people. Engaging with our faith community, so we can use faith venues to engage with people, community hubs, marketplaces. Obviously, we will want to get our partners actively involved as well, so encouraging the likes of the NHS, police, to encourage people to participate in that. There's obviously schools. We really want to make sure that a young person's voice is heard as part of this as well, as being that future up and coming generation. So there will be a big focus on engaging with young people. And obviously the businesses within our region as well, who provide that kind of economic growth for us as well, prosperity. From a council perspective, obviously, as Balvinda mentioned as well, it's equally important that we capture everyone's opinions as well. So we will be engaging with all members, staff as well. We'll be given that opportunity. Any local partnerships that we have and existing forums, we will be encouraging participation through those channels. So obviously there's important things around such as what the committee will be interested in around governance and assurance. So we will make sure that there is a robust governance arrangement in place to ensure the consultation is delivered transparently. That will hopefully provide you with assurance that decisions will be informed by evidence. And that obviously it will stand your scrutiny. So in terms of there will be that strategic oversight from the corporate management team and cabinet and yourselves as the core business scrutiny committee. Underneath that, there will be a programme board and project team, which will be led by myself, who will work with that third party supplier as well. There'll also be that independence assurance as well, just to make sure that actually we are doing what we say we are. So thinking about actually making sure we've got representatives from our equalities team, making sure that actually the survey we're doing is compliant with GDPR, for example, safeguarding, all that information governance is all taken into consideration, because obviously we will be handling data. And that then hopefully will give that community confidence as well, because one thing to make sure that we do get really good responses is to make sure actually that we've built that trust within the communities, that we're being transparent, and that actually, you know, we want people to be involved in the process. So thinking about, obviously then, you know, turning that community insight into better decisions. So thinking about actually how do we go from insight to strategic action. We've kind of touched on this earlier, but it's just to go on in a bit more detail. So I've come up with a proposed kind of executive framework about how actually the consultation will contribute to steps to come, so people can actually see the journey that is, and it all will be evidence-led. So obviously, I've mentioned the first things, you know, it will start from the voice to give those themes a vision. That will translate then to a council plan. From that, we'll get directorate strategy and service plan, which will then form service transformation, which then residents will be able to see the outcomes. So, you know, in a caveat, listening to our communities, using that evidence to act, will deliver a better future for Dudley. Obviously, with anything and everything, there is risks associated with it. So just to highlight some of the risks that we have initially identified as part of the consultation. Obviously, there's a couple of things that, you know, you would expect. So, you know, there's a risk around limited and unrepresented participation. But we'd overcome by that by having a targeted outreach and inclusive engagement programme and approach. Obviously, low awareness of the consultation. We'd mitigate that by we've got a communications campaign, which I've talked about, so making sure that that's actually outreaching and visible to all to want to participate. There is a bit around actual, you know, negative sentiment or low trust towards the consultation. The mitigation for this that we've identified is, you know, targeted pro-specific feedback loops. So actually showing that we do want to listen, we do want to take it seriously, and to rebuild that trust within people if they have lost trust with us. Obviously, there could potential for poor quality of data and incomplete data. That's why we've got the third-party supplier with us to actually, you know, develop a robust way of capturing the data, and that there is that element of quality assurance involved. Delays in the consultation timeline, but obviously we will have a detailed project plan, and we'll be monitoring that to make sure that we are delivered and that the vision is live from the next financial year. And obviously stuff around data protection and information risks, so it's making sure we're GDP compliant, and we are working with the third-party supplier around that and getting all the necessary checks from them to give us that reassurance. So in terms of a high-level programme timelines, obviously we have been mobilising and preparing now for a go-live for the consultation. We do plan to do a launch and raise awareness in August sometime. So within the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll be able to launch the consultation process. As part of that process, we will engage and listen. The third-party supplier then will analyse that data for us and come back to us, identifying some key things towards October. And then November, we'll use that to co-create, so feedback and actually what have they provided us to co-create that vision, and then obviously share that with yourselves before it goes through the other governance channels to Cabinet and full Council. So obviously wanted to put in that, you know, what will success look like and some KPIs so we can be held accountable for this, just to make sure that, you know, the consultation is a success. One of the things is obviously around reach. So, you know, making sure that we engage with people as much as possible. Representation, so making sure that our engagement reflects the diversity of Dudley and that all voices are being heard. The quality of the insight, so making sure that the responses we get actually generate meaningful insight to inform those strategic decisions. And then influence, so ensuring actually that insight that we get directly shapes our decisions and informs that council plan going forward. So what will the benefits of this be? Obviously, the benefits of the consultation and the vision itself, you know, it will deliver stronger decisions, better partnerships and improved outcomes. So in thinking about the short term, it will help build that foundation. So, you know, it will help us to increase resident participation within the council, build those stronger relationships with partners and get a better understanding of our community priorities. Thinking about the medium term benefits, obviously we'll then have the borough vision, a council plan, by the public then actually being actively involved and being able to see that, it should give us greater public confidence within the borough. And again, you know, also it will help partners align to our work, so we are working more closely with our partners and have aligned aspirations for the borough. obviously, in the long term, once we do have that, what that lasting impact of this vision will be is, we'll be able to better target investment, better use the resources that we've got, look at how we improve service transformation, create that stronger communities, create a sustainable economic growth, and obviously improve the quality of life across the borough. So, beyond this, the benefits will extend beyond the consultation itself, providing a lasting foundation for future policy, investment and transformation. So coming towards the end, so just to summarise, if you've not, what the committee is being asked for is actually your support, so, to endorse the proposed approach, subject to any changes that you might wish to recommend or anything that you'd like for us to consider as part of these terms of reference. Support the proposed wide consultation and engagement programme that has been presented in front of you. Obviously, the committee is there to provide any comments and recommendations to strengthen the consultation methodology, which I have presented to you. And also, I would ask that the committee, once the consultation does go live, encourages members to participate and to promote it actively within their wards to maximise that resident engagement. So there's just kind of two last summary slides. So thinking about actually, what is a 2037 legacy for Dudley? It's about creating an ambition for a borough where everyone can thrive. So, thinking it will be a place of opportunity, pride and prosperity, built on our strong communities, vibrant economy and sustainable services for future generations. So making sure that, we've got stronger, healthier communities, a thriving local economy, attractive and sustainable place, towns and neighbourhoods, making sure we've got that strong collaboration across the public, private, voluntary sector, us having a modern, financially sustainable and customer-focused council, and a lasting legacy that will improve quality of life and civic pride across the borough. So, last kind of thing, we had those recommendations, but I suppose a call to action is, we want to develop Dudley's future together. So just to reiterate those messages from the start, it does represent a once in a generation opportunity for people to shape the future through their voice. It will provide that strategic direction for the next decade. And by listening widely, engaging openly and transparently, we've got an opportunity that will create a vision that will share, inspire confidence and deliver long-term benefits. So, developing the future of Dudley should be shaped with our communities, not simply for, with our communities, not for our communities. I'll welcome any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Amajit. And just a couple of comments from me and a couple of questions just before I open it up to committee. Obviously, this is, again, really important piece of work, and it's exactly why I wanted it to come to committee at this stage in terms of us being able to input into something that was just about to start rather than something that's happened, and we scrutinise it that way. And again, it links back to the point I made on the last item in terms of the importance of getting this right, because, we can't just have another consultation where residents are asked a question and they feel that it's not been delivered, or a strategy that then sits on a shelf somewhere, because it's the worst thing in the world when residents get asked a question and they just feel like they've been ignored or it's been done to tick a box. I don't want to be too negative about this at the minute. I wanted to pick up on a point that Balvinder made. I think it's a question for you, Balvinder, rather than yourself, Amajit. And it was really around when you made the point of the current vision document, the Forging the Future, hadn't been a success, hadn't delivered the impact that we want to see across the borough. My question to you really is, if residents haven't got the confidence that the last thing that they were asked about has delivered for them, why should they engage with this and have the confidence that what they tell us now will be delivered in the future?
Yeah, so a very good question, Chair. So let me put it in that way. When I said that the borough vision, the majority of the first 5 years were during the pandemic. That's really important. There wasn't the ability to deliver. The borough vision is a place-based strategy. It is our partnership strategy. So you've got the NHS, you've got the police, you've got the ambulance, you've got the partners in there. What happened during the first sort of main period of that strategy was that what you had was working across the place. So it wasn't that it wasn't successful. So maybe my wording was clumsy. It wasn't that it wasn't successful. What we had was partners identifying their priorities, what their sort of own visions, as the one we're talking about, our organisational one, where they were talking about the work that they were doing, the changes they were making within their organisations. Where we need to be stronger in the last 5 years of the Borough Vision is how we do that collectively. So when it's a place-based strategy, how do you get that integrated working? This vision that's in front of you is the organisational vision. So this is the council vision, which says how we will feed into that borough vision, and that should be the case for everybody. So the NHS has its own trust-based strategy, the ICB has their strategy, and all of them are intermeshed and then seek to deliver our borough vision. So why am I confident in this one? One, we're consulting far more extensively than we have ever done before as a council. But secondly, the one thing that we will produce at the same time is the 5-year plan, and that will be signed off by council and cabinet and council. And that will give you the clear outcomes and outputs that we're looking to deliver out of the work. That will be the voice of residents, businesses and needs. Now, where we can't deliver something, because, for example, you know, it's council deem it unaffordable, or it's not being I can't think of a reason yet, but say there is a piece of work that isn't, then we'll also be honest with residents about why that cannot be delivered. It might be something the council can't, but it might be something we can do in the borough vision. So I am confident because, one, we're engaging wider, we're engaging all the way through from our young people, all the way through to those who don't normally engage with us. And that's really important, that we've got a lot of communities that don't engage with us. So how do we bring them out and what's important for them? But you will get this at the same time you will get the 5-year council plan. This council, I don't believe, has ever had a 5-year council plan. So these are a series of firsts. But what I do expect from the Borough Vision Review, which is now halfway through its life cycle, is which elements are left for the last 5 years, and when do we then start the work for the new place-based Borough Vision? So please don't think Forging the Future is finished. It's halfway through. It's absolutely right at this stage to review that. We're taking that opportunity to bring it live to residents and say, that's our place-based partnership vision. This is our organisational vision. And that they're two very distinct things. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Bavinder. I mean, I understand what you've said there. I mean, from my point of view, I would probably say that the strategy hasn't delivered what we want it to deliver anyway, which I would have said without you saying what you said. I think the issue for me on this as well is that the reason certain people and certain places don't engage with the council is because they don't feel that they've been listened to before, or don't have the confidence in the ability of the council to deliver for them. So that was just my big worry in terms of this particular consultation. And I think to mitigate some of that, and what I'd be interested to hear from you, Amajit, in terms of those key stakeholders, is how are we going to use the really trusted organisations in the community? You mentioned faith organisations, but there's a whole range of organisations that people across Dudley would look at and go, I trust them. You know, if they tell me to engage with something, even though I'm sceptical about the council, I'll engage with it because, you know, an organisation has said it, a community centre has said it, a faith organisation has said it. So how are we going to make sure that we are doing that to the maximum on this? Because I think if we don't do that, some of those risks that are already high and medium around lack of engagement, you know, lack of quality data, all that will end up happening. So I think that's a really important point on how we're going to use those trusted organisations. And the second point comes back to the point that you just made, Balvinder, around, okay, so this is the next steps of what we want residents to tell us they want Dudley to be. But what are we going to do through the consultation and through some of these events to actually say to residents, this is actually what we've delivered so far, and this is why you can be confident that we will do the next bit. And I think for me, those are two of the key things, I think, to whether this will be a success or not. Thanks, Chair.
And Chair, if I could just come in there before Amajit does. So you're absolutely right. We need to start with a baseline that says this is what's delivered. So, and one of the things we haven't done well is we haven't celebrated some of the deliverables that we've got across. some of our key functions. So just in partnership working, you know, our performance in hospital discharges has been really, really strong. Those sort of things we don't really talk about. So I think you're right. What we should say to residents as we start this consultation is, why engage now? What is different now? And that's a really positive point. And what the council's delivered. And it is the right time to do our own council vision now, because the council's finances are stabilised. So we're in a position now where we can get that feedback from residents. They can feed into, we could develop a 5-year plan, Chair, ourselves as a council. There are 5-year plans that every council's got. But what you want is a 5-year plan that those trusted bodies, like our voluntary sector groups, like those groups that people engage with on a daily basis, say what is important to them from the grassroots all the way through to the big schemes that we want to deliver, and then feed those into a costed plan that then demonstrates to our residents, you said this is what we're able to do. And the stuff we can't do, I think we should also be honest about that's how that will be phased over, that it can't be delivered. So this is very different. I think what I'd like to see for the last 5 years of the Forging the Future and for our next 10-year borough vision is that same approach. Is there a clear plan that's shared by all the partners that we can then hold our partners to account? Because we know we can't deliver services in adults, in children's without our partners. We can't deliver some of our antisocial behaviour work without our partners. So it's about reinforcing that, but it's also about reinforcing the council priorities. But what you will get is that 5-year plan that's costed, that sets out the priorities. And of course, as the representatives of the community, the 72 members who will sign this off at full council, and you will have your opportunity to input that point as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Balvinder. Did you want to add to that, Majid?
Yeah, I think just coming back to your first point, Chair, about, you know, how are we going to make sure that we engage with those trusted organisations where in the past it probably has been difficult to engage with them. So what we are doing is actually liaising with officers across the council. So to actually identify who has good relationships built up with various organisations across the borough. So with all the different directorates, so thinking about obviously our economy directorate, thinking about those businesses, what is the best way to go through there? We have a community development team within our communities and culture service area who actually have got really good relationships with a lot of the different parts of the community. Engaging with adults, our adult social care team to think about actually how do we get access into making sure that we reach our vulnerable people as well. So we are using our network across the council to identify who has got those good established relationships with those organisations and stakeholders, and actually using that as a way in to actually push our message to say, actually, you know, we do want to make meaningful change. Please do participate.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'll just open it out to committee. I think Councillor Mughal, you were first, and then Councillor Azad, I think. Or do you want? Yeah, Councillor Davis and then Councillor Azad.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've briefly touched on the question already. So my question is, I think it's a fair comment to say that Dudley isn't great at consultation. I don't think I'm being completely unreasonable to say that. I think our past experience has been consultation uptake isn't great. So what are we doing different in this timeline compared to when the last vision was created? I wasn't here when the last vision was created, so I would like to know what's different in this program timeline compared to the last one. And then mainly referring to the consultation, I agree with the points of trying to get into community, faith groups, community centres, etc., etc. But I've got nothing to base this, so please don't quote me on this. Don't put this in the minutes, maybe. But I would say the majority of residents probably don't engage in a faith centre, probably don't engage in a community centre. I would say majority, just the average person, doesn't engage in any of these community organisations. How are we reaching those people?
Yeah, if Chair, if through you I can come back on that. I'd say Councillor Muggle, I would have to slightly disagree about is Dudley good at consultation. Our local plan consultation was extensive. Our budget consultation that we do annually, each year we get more and more responses back from that, and they feed in their priorities. So I think the residents that you're saying that are the ones who may not come through a community group, may want to come through us direct. That's where we've got the ability to use our libraries as information points. We've got our family hubs as information points. We've got online, we've got through schools. We have to use our networks, and that's the plan this time. So, you know, the sort of numbers that we see in some of our consultations, when we did the survey, and it was just over 2.5 years ago, around priorities for residents around carbon reduction, we had a very strong response. So, and that was fed into, you know, when they talked about, you know, the way that they wanted to see air quality, etc., and all those things are fed in, and they have improved. I think what we haven't done is really told the story about what we have achieved, and there is a tendency to talk things down, and actually, you know, we need to talk, we need to use this as an opportunity to lift things and actually ask people what is important to them. So things like, you know, the NEETs agenda, which is, you know, young people not in employment or education, etc. What would support them? How can we use this program to really get apprenticeships up, etc., and engage those businesses, etc. So there's lots of facets that we can use. But I mean, I've worked for 6 councils in my career. I wouldn't share the view that Dudley is not great at consultation. There are obviously areas we can improve, but where we do consult, we do get some very good feedback.
Sorry, Aftab, did you want to come in?
Just a really quick point, Chair, and just emphasising the point that Amajit made during his presentation in terms of the role of councillors and the crucial role that councillors will play during this consultation, and it feeds upon the point that was made earlier in terms of trust and why residents should engage with this process, because that trust is ultimately, to a degree, built by yourselves as councillors. And that trust is to say that, well, we are the decision makers and you will be heard during this consultation because you will ultimately approve this vision. So I think it's a crucial role in terms of the relationships that you have with organisations, or the relationships that you have with individual residents, picking up upon the point that you made, Councillor Mughal. So it's just emphasising the point that equally Matt Amajit made during his presentation.
Thanks, Aftab. Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree in terms of the role I think elected members have got to play in the consultation, in getting the message out there. I do think that ultimately residents' trust of the council is by them delivering on what people ask and what they want. And I think that's probably a big part of why there's a lot of scepticism by residents to engage in things like this. So ultimately, I think it is, we listen, we deliver. And if you don't, then residents will just disengage completely. But I do agree in terms of the role elected members have got to play. Do you want to come in after before I bring in Councillor Davis?
It's just to that point, Chair. So obviously the consultation and the feedback that we do get from members, as it's been mentioned, will actually develop that 5-year plan. And as part of that 5-year plan, whatever those actions are that we look to deliver on, you know, we will be held accountable for that as well. There will be, you know, designated senior officers that will be, you know, to say that actually we delivered and to give that progress. So hopefully we'll be able to then give that trust to say, actually, you know, hopefully you should see progress, and that actually your voice has been heard and we are making those changes that we have committed to.
Brilliant. Thank you. You okay, Councillor Davis? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. You have gone into the first of my points, but I just really want to reiterate it and lend the biggest support I can to it. That visions are great, they're necessary, but it's no substitute for delivery. Councils and this council needs to focus on delivering core services and delivering them well. And we can get tied up in thinking we've got to run the perfect consultation and spend countless officer hours on it, and you know, it's going to have a pound sign before the cost of all this as well. It's no substitute for making sure the bins are collected on time, potholes and roads are fixed, grass is cut, and all sorts of things that our residents see on the ground. So that's not a question, but it's something I think we always need to emphasise: delivery, 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 and that should be at the front of any vision. Second point is about the company who'll be providing and facilitating the consultation for us, what direction they'll be given, because I think there's there's a fashion, and we saw some of it perhaps in that slide there, and it's a national one and international, where consultations say we've got to reach out to every community and so on, and then a lot of effort of the consultation gets put into reaching out to certain communities. And one, for example, is an assumption that lots of people don't speak English, so we might need to create lots of expensive literature or material to reach out to a demographic who speak a different language. Now, the reality here in Dudley is we've got the second highest English-speaking population in the West Midlands of 95.6%. So I think before I was to endorse any approach, I would want to know that this council was telling the provider that it's got to cater for the demographics of this borough, not something that might suit inner city Birmingham, or if the provider's based in London and they're trying to meet the needs of London. This is Dudley Borough. We've got our own demographics, our own population. We need to meet their needs. And for example, what we do have, we know we also have the second oldest population in the West Midlands. So to make sure we're reaching our communities in this borough, we need to be making sure it's not all digital online. We need to put a special emphasis on reaching out to older people. I entirely agree with Councillor Muggle when he said that lots of people, hard to reach communities actually don't engage with VCSFE organisations at all. So we can't just tick a box and say, right, we've worked with this organisation or that organisation and that means we've reached hard to reach groups. It doesn't. We need to get out there on the ground and really reach out to people in different ways. So assurances on those points what I'm after before I could endorse any approach.
So if I could just come in there, sorry, because Amajit's only, I think he's only in his second month, so I just thought I'd just help with that. So Councillor Davies, this company that we have recruited is one to help us move at pace. They are facilitating, but they will be supplemented by our own colleagues. So we will have our staff, we will have representatives of our departments. So for example, you talk about older people, so absolutely our adult social care teams will be fully engaged as to how best to engage with them in the way they like to engage with them. That's why I was quite clear to say that whilst digital is one forum, we've got libraries, we've got family hubs to engage with families who engage through that. We've got our charities, we've got like the food bank, we've got the baby bank, we've got some really thriving, organisations, we've got our housing hubs, we've got our partners who can also support us in this. So the aim is not to, and if anybody thinks that we're going to spend, for example, loads and loads of effort and time and money, looking for very, very niche groups, absolutely no, we're not. But what we are trying to do is make sure this consultation is wide as it can be and encourage through, organisations to respond. But we want to hear direct from residents, and we will use every vehicle. And some of those may be, because even though we say that, not everybody engages digitally, then some people do. If you go into say clubs, then you can do group consultations. You don't have to have everybody filling out a survey. You can do a focus group that says, what are the things that are most important to you, say as an older person or somebody who, does a lot of volunteering, that says, does Dudley offer enough community gardens, etc. That, we've got quite a few spaces around our housing estates that could, if they wish to build that sense of neighbourhood pride with community gardens. But we need to hear from those. So our housing tenants, using our staff and through our sort of recognised mechanisms of consulting with those tenants, use that as well. So I just want to assure you that we are going to use our networks and our own staff to supplement this. This company is to facilitate this and give us the ability, so they script everything, to give our staff the opportunity to run the focus groups, but something that you're scripting a vision feedback and then turning it into these are the key priorities and then turning that to a plan is quite a laborious piece of work. And what we want to do is use the staff that will be led by Amajit to actually talk to our residents, get the best out of them, go out to our businesses and get the information from them. But it will be representative of our borough.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Balvinda. That's reassuring to hear from yourself. And I think I would possibly lean towards a recommendation, Chair, that Balvinda, Amajit and the team no doubt are on the same page as members as this. But again, when you're bringing in a third party to run something like this for you, unless you're very clear with them, they can still do things that you don't want them to do, or take an approach that we might not want them to take. So I would just say, do we consider a recommendation around the council setting a clear direction to the provider to make sure that it, we haven't got to agree the word in here now, I'm happy for you to do that, Chair, afterwards, but that it focuses on the demographics of this borough, and that's given the main consideration.
I'm happy with that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, me too, yeah. And I'm happy to formulate that wording, but I think it's a fair point in terms of making sure that it meets the needs of our borough. Councillor Azad, did you want to come in?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. This is an if question, Amajit. So if we got to the stage where the deadline for the responses from across the borough from our residents had closed, and there was a particular area or ward where there was minimal to no sort of representation or sort of return feedback, what would happen in that case? Would the process then continue without the voices of that particular area or those residents, their voices being heard? Would that process then continue? And if that were the case, is it possible at that stage then, as after I've referred to lean on the role of the councillors to sort of step in and help provide some of those voices that the representatives may be aware of?
Thank you for your question. So what we are planning on doing is actually monitoring those the rates of where it's coming through with the provider. So we have got a kind of like a project set up with that. So hopefully we wouldn't get to a stage at the end where we haven't actually got anything. So we'll be able to monitor trends. So we'll be looking at actually where have they got responses from, what is the representation, you know, we are looking at ward level, etc. So the plan would be to tackle those early on. The consultation will be running over a 2-month period. So hopefully from the early on, if there is a particular area of the borough that hasn't been engaging, you know, we will then be able to focus to say, actually, you know, we need to, you know, engage with members a bit more to say, actually, you know, can you really push it within that area to try and push participation? So the plan would be, hopefully we wouldn't get into that situation because we'll be monitoring it on a regular basis through the consultation period.
And if we were unsuccessful at that point, would we be made aware of that, and what could or would be done at that stage?
You want me to come back in that, Amajit?
I think you're about to, so if you want to go first, and if there's anything I can
Yeah, I would expect one of the reports that you would get was a ward breakdown for your own ward, so that you could see, you know, if there hadn't been active participation. And don't forget, you know, all our wards, all 24, have different needs and different priorities. Even some of the wards that are seen as, you know, are perceived as being really affluent and are affluent in some parts, they have some real exclusions in some areas. So it's really important that members do understand, you know, from their ward, what has the responses been, what the priorities have been. But we will have to at some stage close it, but we will give it the best effort to make sure you get reports so you see what responses you're getting from your wards. If nothing else, it gives you the ability to say, by the way, you've missed this section or you've missed that. I hope not, but it does give that check and challenge back to you.
Thank you, Balvinda and Amajit.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think that it's around that point, isn't it, about the ongoing conversation with elected members, with key stakeholders. But this is on the agenda to come back at the start of the new year as well. So I think by that point, hopefully there'll be some good stuff for us to be able to get our teeth into at the start of the new year as well on this sort of council vision and the consultation. Any other questions from members? If not, I'll move on. Brilliant. So in terms of recommendations, they are in the report in terms of our comments being incorporated into this, endorsing the approach and us supporting the consultation with the added one that you've mentioned, Councillor Davis, which I can formulate, but I think you've already said basically the wording we can use. So if everyone's happy with that, does the committee agree on those recommendations? Brilliant, thank you. Agenda item number 9. I don't think there are any questions under Procedure Rule 11, are there, Steve? It's always good. And then there's no other further agenda items on this. So can I just say a massive thank you to all members and to officers I think we've had a really good discussion and some really good stuff that we'll see progress over the coming months as well. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Have a good evening.